Hey guys, so the Monster Hunter World Beta has ended, and I thought it would be a pretty good idea at this time to go over a few tips and tricks that I picked up while playing the beta, as well as the past 13 years of playing Monster Hunter. So let's get right into it. If you played the beta, you notice that there are 14 different weapon types, which is honestly a little overwhelming at first. You might be wondering, what weapon do I start out with? And the answer is actually quite simple. All you need to do is head into the training area and try all the different weapons out. Find one that really complements your playstyle, and then practice it for a little while before you go out on a hunt. I do have some reservations about new players starting out with some of the more complex weapons such as Insect Glaive, Switch Axe, or Charge Blade. You might want to watch out for those starting off because you're going to be spending a lot of time worrying about how you actually perform attacks rather than watching the monster's attacks, and that's going to get you hurt pretty quick. You also may want to be a little more cautious in starting off with the light bowgun or heavy bowgun, and this is because those two weapons use different ammo types, and in order to use those you need money, and in order to get money you need materials, and at the very start it's kind of difficult to get either of those stocked up pretty quickly, so you'll find yourself kind of working against yourself if you start off with one of those weapons. It's not impossible, but it is an uphill battle. I've also found it's pretty advantageous to stick to one or two weapon types at the very beginning. And this is because you don't want to spread yourself too thin trying to master all the different weapons right away. At the very beginning of the game, you want to try and study the new monster's attacks, really learn them so you can actually get better at fighting them with the new weapons that you're going to be having a challenge on later on. And if you truly master one weapon type really well, then when you try to discover those other weapon types later on in the game and you're struggling, you always have something to fall back on. You should also try to learn a second weapon type at the start. I myself like to main dual blades and hammer, and this is because duals are fast, agile, and do cutting damage, while the hammer is a slow powerhouse that does blunt damage. Sometimes you may find you're having difficulties with a monster and have another, different weapon type to utilize while aiding your survivability. Also, some monsters are more susceptible to one damage type than another, so mixing it up can really pay off. No. One of the great things about Monster Hunter is that the best weapon is the one you're most comfortable with. Consider staying solo for a while. It's going to be a lot easier to learn the monster's movesets if they are focused primarily on you, and that's key to succeeding in Monster Hunter. You will also find that playing online with others makes the hunts more difficult, so going in with some honed skills is going to make the hunts much smoother. You shouldn't worry too much about skills at the start if they're overwhelming. Just focus on defense and resistance until you feel comfortable. Then, start by recognizing your playstyle's weaknesses and start by improving on those. Perhaps you get hit a lot. While you're learning the monster's attacks, you might need more evade and vulnerability or higher defense. Maybe you're not getting hit but your time to kill is taking too long. Add some attack in. Start there, and by the time you make it to high rank, when all the real custom armor sets are introduced, you'll be a natural at mixing the perfect set for your needs. If you find yourself hitting a brick wall at the start of the game, just remember, this game is meant to be difficult. It requires learning and adapting. So, start by trying your backup weapon. Or maybe you just need a break. Not from Monster Hunter, mind you, just from that specific beast. Go hunt something else and come back. Of course, there's also multiplayer with tons of other people willing to help you out. Just remember to return the favor later. Not at all. What a lot of people forget about Monster Hunter is that you need everything. It's pretty common for people who have rushed through the game to need to return to earlier quests to get lower quality parts to start weapon or armor pads. This means that there are always hunters who need parts from quests that you need. But also remember that this goes both ways. Don't be afraid to help others in a quest you may not need right now, because there's an extremely good chance you're going to need those parts later. When you're starting out, don't throw away or sell anything unless you know you can farm it. Things like scales and shells are easy to get and can sell pretty decently when you have a bunch, so try to stick to those if you need some money. And do not forget to gather. Many weapons and armor require an insane amount of ore and rare bugs, and they've drastically improved the gather system in this game, so you really have no excuse. In the beta we were limited to 20 minutes, which was pretty short and honestly might have turned some of you off to the game. But don't worry, in the full game you won't be limited to such a short time frame, and it looks like we'll even be able to continue hunting and exploring even after we kill the contracted monster in most cases. The options menu is riddled with amazing, well, options. The first thing you should do when you start up the game is to go in and play with all the settings to find the best ones for you. Here are some recommendations. Set the radial menu to type 2. This makes you press R3 as opposed to just release it, and will solve any accidental item usage when using the radial menu. Change the camera control type to Type 2. Type 1 makes your dodges relative to the camera direction, but Type 2 makes your movements relative to your character and is much more practical during a hunt. It's also what past Monster Hunter games have typically defaulted to. This allows you to rotate the camera during a hunt and have consistency in your movements. The item control settings are purely personal preference. If you're a hardcore veteran who feels the radial menu is unnecessary, you can simply turn it off with item control Type 3. Otherwise, you can choose between Types 1 and 2, which alter the use of the D-pad or the face buttons for item menus. Use the target camera style if you don't always want to be locked onto the monster. This is the type of camera that was present in past iterations with a lock-on. If you want the game to control the camera for you, change it to the focus camera. I also recommend setting your target camera to match the height of the monster. On steep inclines or monsters that cling to ceilings, this is a really efficient option. Of course, you can also turn off the damage indicators within the options, as well as the control guide which appears in the top right. I highly recommend getting used to using the new radial menu. There are 4 categories that you can customize, meaning you have a lot faster access to important items, gestures, combinations, basically everything. Please spend some time customizing your different tabs for your most utilized items, and be aware that you can even set a shortcut to combine something for you. If you don't want to use the radial menu, or you want customization within your customization, know that you can also edit your item scroll menu order. Spend some time on this as well, but be aware that your orders and items may change from hunt to hunt, looking at you, cool and hot drinks. As mentioned before, you can set a combination shortcut on your radial menu, but if that isn't fast enough for you, you can go in and select specific items that you would like to be auto-crafted. This is extremely useful for bowgunning, as you'll be able to bring materials with you and craft as you use the ammo. In the same sense, you can select items you do not want auto-crafted. This has been potentially just as valuable because there may be some items you do not want to consume right away, as you may need them for something else later. Go in and edit your phrases before you go online, particularly if you do not own a microphone. Monster Hunter requires a lot of communication, and quick gestures and phrases are a great option to utilize. You could let your team know that you really need a horn break, or that you're going to change weapons, or that you need healing desperately because you're poisoned, out of antidotes, dizzy, and the monster is looking right at you. Just remember to keep it positive. In the demo, you could feint 8 times before failure. In the full game, you can only feint twice. On your team's third cart, it's over. I hope you all found this helpful. There are plenty of further in-depth tips I could go over, but for now, I think this is a pretty good start. Feel free to drop any questions you might have over in the comments below, and until next time, happy hunting.